Hey YouTube, this is Rahul and I'm really excited to be sharing an important concept in driving which is called Rev-matching. And I literally ran out of my house with whatever little essentials I had to shoot this video with this phone that's here recording and just another tripod for actually shooting the pedal play. And I'm really excited to talk about this concept because it's very important in efficient driving. God, I'm so unprepared for this video. This is like one of my first few videos on YouTube and I've not even shaved or anything. It's going to be completely impromptu. I hope I can convey my points to you guys. Okay, I've reached this spot. Let's get settled. Engine off. So finally, now that we are here, hello YouTube. I'm Rahul and I'm really excited to talk about rev matching, which is a very important concept in efficiently driving vehicles. There are a lot of videos on the internet that speak about this concept, that explain how it's done, but I've seen that most of it are not Indians and they don't really speak with the Indian scene in mind. So I'm going to be giving you a very non-technical insight into rev matching and how it's done, especially with the Indian roads in mind, where you can actually do it, the opportunities in traffic, in highways when you can actually do it, and all of this while boosting your drivetrain's life. So let's get started. A lot of things that's going to be mentioned in this video is going to be actually enjoyed by beginner automobile enthusiasts like me myself. I'm just 24 years old, but I'm really interested in driving and more importantly in driving efficiently, which matters a lot. So guys, what's rev matching? It's actually a proven technique that can actually save your brakes and clutch from wearing out prematurely, and if done correctly it can actually improve your fuel economy and the overall driving experience for you as a driver and even for the passengers in the vehicle. So before we get started at how it's done, I want you guys to understand very non-technically that at a given speed you'll have the engine spinning at a certain RPM, which is going to be unique to the gear that you're in for that particular speed. So that brings me to my next point, that a rev match is done perfectly when you bring the engine to that RPM for that gear at that speed before you actually shift and release the clutch. So I'm in my 2018 Innova Crysta VX diesel variant and I'm going to show you how it's actually done on this car. I'm going to be talking about a second to third upshift and possibly a third to fourth if I can, and if possible I'm going to also show you a fourth to third gear downshift and how rev matching is done in all these scenarios. So let's take a look at it right away. So guys, now that I've moved to a comfortable spot, hazards on, and I'm going to show you guys how a rev match is done from second to third gear. So pay attention to the tachometer and the speed. Right now we are at somewhere around 20 with 1000 revs. And here we go. I've just cleared the speed breaker. I'm going to raise my engine revs up to around 1900 and then bring the RPM down to low. I know that in the third gear the RPM has to be somewhere around 1000 revs, so I'll bring it up to that and then lump the clutch. So that was a perfect rev match from second to third. I'm not sure if it was very clear, but we'll take a look at one more example of the same thing from second to third. Here we go. Alright, so now again pay attention to the speed and the tachometer. I'm going to rev up to 1900. Clutch in, the RPM goes to idle. Flip it a little and bring it to 1000 and then clutch out. That was a perfect rev match. Okay guys, now we are in a scenario 2 wherein I'm driving at around 40 kmph and I'm on the third gear. And I'm kind of on a highway, kind of a stretch, and I'm going to now show you guys how a rev match from third to fourth gear looks like. Almost cleared the ascent, and now I'm going to show you guys at 40 kmph. I'm on a downhill slope and I know it's going to go on for long, so I can clutch in, and at this point I know that my fallback RPM is going to be somewhere around this one. I gear in and I clutch out, and it was a perfect rev match for the fourth gear. And similarly, I'm going to also show you guys how it would look like if I downshift at this point. I kind of clutch in, bring my RPM up to the correct point and clutch out, and it was a perfect downshift rev match. So at this point, if I should accelerate a little and then again upshift to the fourth gear, clutch in, bring it to the correct RPM and then clutch out. It's a perfect rev match. Like in all these cases, I've not been leaving the clutch gradually because I know that the clutch is at the perfect point, so I just dump it. Like, you know, I'm not using my clutch at all. So now I need to downshift because I'm at 40 on third gear. Bad idea. Clutch in, bring your RPM up to the correct point, clutch out. That's it. And you see the vehicle is so stable, like it's of course not visible on the camera, but the vehicle is really stable. I'm going to show you a third to fourth rev match one more time so that it's clear to you guys. Yes, this is comfortable at this point. I can shift up, so I can clutch in, let the RPM go down. I need to bring it to a convenient spot which I know, which is this one, and I clutch out. The vehicle has not jerked even a bit, and I just dump the clutch again. I'm going to drive through, and very soon, if possible, I'm going to show you a fourth to fifth gear rev match. Let's see if it works. Yes, I'm nearly about 60 at this point. I can clutch in, bring my RPM to the correct point, and then clutch out. That was a perfect rev match, guys. And in all these cases, I want to tell you guys that the vehicle has not jerked a fair bit. Now I'm on an ascent on the fifth gear. My speed is rapidly falling. I'm going to find a comfortable situation. Yes, the speed is too low for fifth gear. Clutch in, bring it to around this point, clutch out on the third gear. So I made a fifth to third downshift rev match, and my vehicle has not jerked a fair bit. I could just dump the clutch, and there was no jerk or anything whatsoever, and it's been a comfortable driving experience. Okay guys, now that you've taken a look at a rev match example, let's understand what happens if you don't do a rev match. And to understand that, you guys need to first understand what happens when you do a rev match. Essentially, when you do a rev match, your engine and the clutch are spinning at the same speed, and because of that, your clutch is virtually not used. So if you perfectly do a rev match, you're essentially not using your clutch at all. And because of that, it's going to be living for much longer than its actual life. Speaking of which, you'll need to understand that especially in India, where there's a lot of bumper to bumper traffic, and more specifically in the city where I live in, which is in Mumbai. Actually it's Thane, but in here there's a lot of traffic, and you are essentially caught in half clutching, coasting on the first gear, and those kind of things. So you're using your clutch more than what a person who's probably not going to be driving in a lot of traffic is going to be using, and because of that, the wear and tear is going to be much higher. So rev matching is something that can actually help you save your clutch, and in whatever cases possible. So why not do it and actually boost your clutch life? In Mumbai, I can say for sure that, vehicles don't really go up to even 50,000 kilometers in most cases without a clutch replacement. A typical clutch replacement costs a lot, and you really don't want to get one done anytime soon. That basically explains what happens if you don't do a rev match. Technically speaking, yeah, the clutch is going to be ridden, and it's going to be used more, because of which it will eventually start deteriorating and probably prematurely die. You never know. And talking about the Indian scene specifically, if you've gone in cabs, like all of us have gone in cabs, you guys might have noticed that the cab drivers sort of just shift the gear and dump the clutch. They just take their foot off the clutch, and your vehicle jerks. You sort of rock to the back or to the front, depending on whether it's an upshift or downshift, and this is something that wears out the clutch very frequently. So forget about the clutch wearing out part. If you look at the overall driving experience, I'm pretty sure the driver is not having fun driving like that, and you as a passenger sitting next to him or behind him, you're going to be feeling very uncomfortable when the vehicle is constantly swaying to the front and back. I can tell you for sure that my mom has a big problem with this kind of driving, in which the vehicle rocks back and forth whenever the gears are shifted, and she's always admired the way my dad drives, because
whenever he shifts gears, it's never felt on the vehicle. You never know. Like if you just blindfold your eyes and sit in the vehicle, you really can't realize that you shifted the gear.
So that's when you do a perfect rev match. You never feel it on the vehicle, and your vehicle is safe, your drivetrain is good, and the passengers are happy. You as a driver, even you're happy. Okay, that was the advantage of rev matching in the city. So where can you possibly do it in bumper to bumper traffic? So if whenever you get a chance, when you're driving out of traffic, you're shifting up to the third gear, you're shifting down to second, there's a lot of second to third upshift and downshift happening. At that time, if you rev match from every second to third or third to second, upshift or downshift, you're going to be actually saving your clutch in every possible way that you can. So that's a very important thing that Indian drivers need to know, especially living in a city like Mumbai. Okay, moving out of the traffic scape and moving onto the highways, rev matching can immensely help in a related concept known as engine braking. So you guys need to understand that for engine braking, you really don't need to rev match. But if you do engine braking without rev match, you are certainly and most certainly going to ruin your clutch very soon. And that's because your clutch is going to be initially used before engine braking actually kicks in, and that's going to be really hurtful to the clutch in the long run. So on the highways, I can say for sure that if you know rev matching, especially on the third to fourth, fourth to fifth, and vice versa shifts, it's going to be immensely helpful in a jerk-free driving experience, in engine braking, which is going to be very, very useful for controlling your vehicle, and thirdly, for fuel economy. It's going to be immensely boosting your fuel economy because of engine braking. And yes, we've been talking a lot about clutch, but what about the brakes and suspension, guys? That's also part of the drivetrain, right? So yes, you're right. It's going to be saving your brakes and suspension alike, because if you're going to be using engine braking without compromising on clutch life, by doing a perfect rev match on the highways, consequently you're actually saving the brake life, if you think about it, because engine braking is basically braking without using the brakes, and that's actually going to save your brake life. Talking about saving the brakes, I can give you my example in that this 2018 Innova Crysta, which is done around 26,700 kilometers now, when I had given it for its 25,000 kilometer service inspection, they had checked the brakes and they were quite surprised that the brakes have barely deteriorated, because the technician even personally met me and he told me that, boss, you've barely used the brakes, what do you do? So he said that generally Innova Crystas, they go in for their brake replacements somewhere around the 20,000 mark, or in some cases even the 30,000 mark. And these come out of the factory with a 12 mm thickness brake pad. And inspecting my brakes, he said that there's more than 7 mm of life left in it, and he said that that's amazing and that I can even go for another 10,000 kilometers without a brake replacement. So guys, that's very important, because you end up saving a lot of money on not replacing these deteriorating parts and at the same time getting a beautiful driving experience. So guys, make use of that tachometer, make your rev matches perfect, and drive efficiently. I hope this video has given you guys a good insight into rev matching typically in the Indian scenario, and this is like one of my first few videos, and I hope you guys liked it. If you really liked it, please hammer the like button below and subscribe if you want to see more videos on related topics. I would love to talk about engine braking and related efficient driving concepts such as heel toe downshifting, double clutching, and even something about modern cars which is called brake throttle override, BTO, which is there in my Innova Crysta, and how it impacts my rev matching experience. So if you guys want to know more about all these things, please leave it down below in the comments, and I would love to make a follow-up video. I love cars and I hope you guys love cars too. Stay tuned and let's meet in another one.